Hey everyone, I'd like to welcome you to this Power Platform Masterclass. And today what we're going to be doing is talking about Power Platform. Anyway, so we've got a couple of really cool things to show you and we have very little time. So I'm going to spend a lot of time flying through this really quickly and we'll make some intros real quick. So the people that you have on the call with you right now that will be doing this masterclass with you are, Keith, do you want to go first?
Yeah, I'm Keith Whatling, work for Quantic, Microsoft MVP for Power Apps, and Chief Digital Ewok.
Matt?
I'm Matt Collins-Jones. I work for TSG. I'm a D365 consultant, and I'm Chief Automation Ewok.
Hey guys, my name is Chris Huntingford. I'm a Power Platform Solution Architect at Microsoft, and I am your official Chief Data Ewok. Now, you're wondering what on earth are these people talking about Ewoks for? And we do have a proper point, and I promise. So, a couple of things real quick, and we will get into why we're talking about Ewoks. First of all, we decided that what we would do is we really decided to stick to the brief and build you a health and safety solution. Except we thought that using Ewoks would be way cooler. Number one, because Star Wars is awesome. And number two, because Ewoks are cute as hell. So you ask us, this is a Power Platform Masterclass. Well, what do you mean? What is the Power Platform? So I'm going to give you Power Platform in 30 seconds. Some of you may know the slide in depth, and I recognize some of the names on the call, and some of you may not. So if you do know it in depth, feel free to go and get a glass of water and come back. Right, so the Power Platform is effectively 4 core areas that were brought through from the top areas of the Microsoft product stack to create this amazing set of functionality for you to fill digital gaps in organizations. Whoa. Now, effectively, when you look at what Microsoft effectively is, we have 3 core service areas. We have business applications, which some of you are experts in. We have Azure, which most of you are experts in. And then we have this glorious thing called M365 or Office, which a lot of you are experts in as well. Now, we needed a way to bring those together. At Microsoft, sometimes we talk about our 3 clouds, which is absolutely nonsense. We have 1 cloud, right? And we work with the 3 different service areas underneath those clouds. To bring those 3 service areas together, we decided to get various different pieces of functionality from each one of those products to make sure that the Power Platform came about. Now, the Power Platform consists of Power BI, which is your business analytics layer, Power Apps, which is your application layer, Power Automation, which is your automation layer, and then finally Power Virtual Agents, which I still think they should have called Power Bot. And each one of these is built on one of those frameworks. So effectively, Power BI comes from N365, usually called Yellow Excel. Power Apps comes from both business applications and SharePoint in the form of 3 application types called portals, model-driven applications, which are reliant on a data model, and Canvas apps, which is effectively looks like PowerPoint and Excel had a love child, but allows you to build out these majorly awesome pixel perfect applications. Power Automate actually comes from Azure, and effectively Power Automate has got a Logic Apps backing for Flow. Power Business Process, the business process flow functionality comes from Dynamics, and RPA, or Robotic Process Automation, we call UI flows, is also backed primarily by Azure. Power Virtual Agents is effectively the bot framework on steroids. Underneath that, or that visualization layer, we have our data layer, which is the most important thing to us. At Microsoft, the most important thing, especially when building out solutions, is data. We have these amazing connectors, they're 350 plus, now that connect to various different data sources. So before, if you were from a Dynamics partner and you walked into a Salesforce organization and you said, hey, don't use Salesforce, it's bad. We say, no. We respect your data. We'll just connect up to it and fill those digital gaps. We have AI Builder. AI Builder is very key, and we'll be talking about it now. I always equate AI Builder to a horror movie, and you're going, what in the hell is he talking about? Well, let me explain why. If any of you have ever watched a horror movie before, you'll notice the person walking into the room and the door going, wah, and slamming shut behind them. Now, that scares the crap out of you. But the reason it does is because you don't know what's closing the door, and you don't know why. So what we did was we democratized artificial intelligence into the platform and made it and gave it in a more sort of palatable formats for people to understand why AI works the way it does. Now, it's not like Arnold Schwarzenegger and Neo from The Matrix are going to go bust through a door. That's sort of a little futurist, right? So Skynet is not here, but it's already a great way for people to augment their data. And then finally, the Common Data Service, which is effectively a super user way or a facility for super users to model data. So those of you that are SQL ninjas and understand things like referential integrity, normalization, and indexing, some people don't. That's why we have the Common Data Service. It does that all for you. So being the Chief Digital Ewok, I didn't want my data to fall into the hands of the dark side. So I decided I was going to take a look at some of the data sources I had to model out my solution in the Power Platform. Now, We have a great thing called the Great Data Wars. And if any of you live on Twitter, you'll notice some of that happening. Now, unfortunately, the Great Data Wars have been around for a long time, where the SharePointers of the world that love their lists were battling the SQL people of the world who love their relational databases. And then in stepped the Common Data Service, which was a beautiful mechanism, beautiful sort of consolidation of those two focal areas in one place. So you could build out these amazing relational data models without having to understand too much around the technical backend. Now you're going, but I want to dip my fingers into the data model. Sorry, folks, you can do that pretty easily in SQL. You can do that to an extent in the Common Data Service, but we don't give you access to all those underlying Azure functions, okay? All that Azure functionality. So underneath the Common Data Service is effectively Cosmos DB, SQL, Azure Blob, and a bunch of other things. Now, the real core thing is if you're a super user, we give you the ability to model that data in the Common Data Service. A slide over here. Now, when I was building out my data model, I had to pick one of the data facilities. I'm using the terminology data facility, not data source on purpose, because each one of these has got a lot more under the hood than you would think. So things like I wanted to be able to generate relationships between my data entities without having to do too much technical work. And that was really easy for me to do in the Common Data Service. Because my SQL knowledge isn't super good, I decided, well, I'll use CDS. Also, it's easier for me to package the solutions and move them around, which we're going to show you shortly. From an actual architecture and design perspective, this is what our solution looks like. And we're going to be building a lot of this for you from scratch. Now, like I said, Common Data Service was my go-to because number one, it offers me out-the-box security. I can do everything from Active Directory authentication all the way down to field level security and data obfuscation directly on the field level. So think about it like this. If you've got secure data that you need to manage at every level possible, you can do that in the Common Data Service. What we also needed was a mechanism for people to give us data, and we're doing that through the Power Apps portal. We needed a mechanism for our mid-office EWOCs to manage that data through a process. So if you effectively think about Jeff, the EWOC in the field running around, and he sees an X-wing on fire, what he's going to do is get onto his app. He's going to pop that in. That's going to land up in the Common Data Service and get surfaced through to the mid-office application for our facilities EWOCs to take that through a process. Now, we augmented a lot of that data with AI Builder. So basically, we don't want to have to capture a lot of data. We want our data to do the work for us. So what we do is we use AI Builder and Power Automate to automate those processes. And then finally, Power BI to show us that data in a more sort of interactive format. Finally, our data model looks a little bit like this. So I didn't have to go into SQL and create 5,000 tables. All I really needed to do was build out those entities in the Common Data Service, and it took care of everything else for me. So basically, we have an EWOC entity, we have a village, we have HSE incidents. So basically, those are our health and safety EWOC incidents that get logged. And then we have smoke signals, which are the mechanism to communicate with everyone. Now, you say to me, hey, Chris, you're probably not going to be able to build that app in 7 minutes. Well, I might disagree with you, and let me show you why. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to quickly fire up a browser session in good old Chrome. I'm going to drag that on. Keith, can you confirm that you can see that real quick?
I can see that real quick.
Marv. Okay. So I'm in a thing called the Maker Experience in Power Platform. So if you go to make.powerapps.com, this is where you come to make stuff. Now, as you can see, I've got a thing called apps, and Keith and Matt are going to go into a bit more detail here. What I've done is I've got a thing called data, and this is where I create my data entities. Now, I'm not going to go through this completely, but I'm going to show you that I've got an EWOC entity. And my EWOC entity consists of a bunch of fields. So if I want to add a new field to my EWOC entity, I'll simply go, I've got lots of different options from a data type perspective. So I can have lookups, I can have option sets. If I were to select a lookup over here, it looks up to another data entity and creates the referential integrity out the box for me. Okay, so we're not going to go ahead and create that field. We've also got the ability to generate views, and that's basically lists in which you view your data. So I can add and remove data components from those views if I really need to. And then finally, forms. Forms are the place you put data in. We've done the same thing with HSE incidents and the rest of them. If I show you a pre-built app, this is effectively what we call a model-driven application. And model-driven apps are beautiful for line of business solutions. So as you can see, I've got my Power BI dashboard, which kind of munges data together from various sources and exposes it in a really great sort of, I don't know, interactive way for users. So you can see I've got a bunch of lightsaber violations over here, and it's quite easy for me to drill in and see what's happened with those and where. Also, the average severity of a lifesaver violation is 4. which is pretty dangerous. I can go ahead and take a look at my Ewok records, which are really cool. And let's go to Wicket, right? Because Wicket's the most badass Ewok out there. And Wicket does a lot of incident reporting for us. You can actually see that Wicket has logged a number of phone calls, and I could quite easily also create smoke signal activities from here as well. So if I really wanted to, I could go ahead and send a smoke signal activity to another Ewok. Now, if you think about this from a real world perspective, you could actually integrate these activities with Outlook, like emails and phone calls. I've got my different villages from a data model perspective. Now, some of these villages are real, some of them aren't, and you can say that this particular village is located on Earth, whereas the Pikiwaki village is located on Endor. I've also got the ability to manage my incident types. So we've got various types of incidents in our system, and then our actual health and safety Ewok incidents as well. So you can see over here, if I pop into the specific incidents, I've got a broken X-Wing. The severity is 6, and I can also upload images directly to this incident and also do collaboration. So this basically, this model-driven application requires a data model that lives underneath it. And that's effectively the Common Data Service. To create a new model-driven app, it's pretty basic, right? New app. We'll wait for the app designer to load. Now remember, what Keith and Matt are going to show you are going to be a little bit different. And we're going to call this test application, very unique naming convention. And all I'm really going to do is drop in a couple of entities that I want to start referencing. So this is the model-driven app designer. We're just going to go HSE, whoops, over there. I can also go ahead and drag in other components. So we're going to add in another entity, which we'll call Ewok. Awesome. We're going to save that over there, save and close. While this is publishing, I'm going to run this application, and congratulations me, I've built my first model-driven application. Now what this does is this takes the components I built within the Power Platform over here in my Common Data Service, and then it serves them up to the users directly in this format over here. So if I want to build a model-driven app, the goal here is to build out the Lego bricks first. If you take a look at this on the theme of Star Wars, I've got a really sweet blue Lego spaceship over here that I spent some time building. I took bricks that I knew and I plugged them together to create that spaceship. That's exactly like creating a model-driven application. You're basically building out your components, then you're snapping them together in a line of business solution that's really accessible by the rest of your organization. The cool thing about model apps is that we don't care if the icon's cornflower blue, to quote Fight Club. What we really care about is making sure that we give you a clear, concise UI with relational functionality that I can use to drill into other records and actually interact with that data in a clear and concise way. Finally, last but not least, I want to talk to you about portals. So remember, all I've basically shown you here is the ability, I want to switch that real quick. Let's go back to the other slide. All I've really shown you here in this particular demonstration is, number one, I've shown you that, well, we've got the maker experience. We can interact with the Power Platform really easily. Number two, we've got this concept of what we call model-driven apps. So first of all, the model-driven apps rely on the Common Data Service. So data first, then app. The Common Data Service provides the components for the app to leverage. The last thing I want to show you, and this is actually available right now, is my Power Apps portal. So Power Apps portals allow external users the ability to access information directly from your Power Platform. So if I go ahead and I click Ewok Incidents Portal, what this will do is take me to a live website, and you're more than welcome to follow this link as well. Please don't judge my design skills. It's not because I have no talents. I just purely have no taste, so I don't care what UI looks like. My friend Keith will take you through all of that just now. I've embedded my Power BI. If I'd like to, if I had the right username and credentials, I could actually log my incidents directly from here. Also, you have the ability to create your own usernames and passwords, which then are stored directly in the Common Data Service. Also, we connect with Azure B2C, LinkedIn, Facebook, and a number of other authentication functions that you could use. Now, what's great about this is that instead of you having to write your authentication layer, we've gone ahead and done that for you using the Power Platform. So to wrap up real quick, all I've done in this very simple demo, number one, is I've spoken about the Common Data Service, how we use that to store data, and how we use that to build components for applications. Number two, I built a very basic model app using some of the components in the Common Data Service. Number three, I showed you that I could create a portal as well and a terribly designed Power BI report. Okay, so those are the components I'm going to cover. I'd like to hand over to my chief automation Ewok, which is Matt. And Matt's going to take you through some of the processes around what he used to automate the way in which data is brought into the system. So Matt, over to you.
Thank you, Chris. So yes, I'm going to be talking through processes. I'm going to turn through two different things. I'm going to be talking through actual processes, and then I'm also going to talk through automation as well, because that is a twofer. Can you guys see the flow screen, or you see my emails? Yeah, cool. So, so the first thing I'm going to show you is something that probably a lot of people that have used Flow have probably never seen, which is a business process flow. So I've created a business process flow here called HSE Investigations, just to save a bit of time. So what is a business process flow? So Chris, Chief Data Officer, if I want users to fill in a bunch of fields on a form and make sure the data is all good, the thing I should do is I should make every single form, every single field required on that form at point of creation, right?
As your chief data officer, I decline that concept. I think it's a terrible idea, Matt.
Yeah, it's a terrible idea, because if you do that, your data quality goes down, and data quality is the path to the dark side. So what we want to do here is we want to guide users through a process so that they can add in information as and when they get it, but we don't force it at point of creation. That way, as and when they get it, we can fill it in and they can follow a simple process so they understand what they need. So this is a Power Apps business process flow designer. It's really simple. It's all trying to draggy, droppy, clickety, clacky. We've got these bits which are steps. So a step is something that the user can fill in. So in this instance, we're going to put the name of the record in here, and we hit apply. At this point, we can actually say whether this is required or not. So this isn't required at the point of creation of the record, but it's required if you want to go through the stages. So the whole idea here is we take it from one stage to another stage to another stage and fulfill all the requirements that the business has, but not necessarily grabbing all that data at the point of creation. So we can say, yeah, this is required at this point. And we can just keep adding stuff in. So if we go back to components, we can just drag data steps in here, and we can say, okay, what else do we need? We want maybe the EWOC at this point, and we can say, yeah, that's required because we want to know who logs it. So that's my first stage, and I can call this stage something like identify, and apply. And that way we can sort of name these stages as we go along. Next thing we want to do is just add another stage. So it's literally just drag, drop, add on, and we create another stage. If that wanted to go in the right place, there we go. And we can create another stage. And what this will do is this will give a visual indicator above that form that Chris was showing to guide a user through the process. And it doesn't matter whether they update it in the business process flow or on the form, it's all the same data, so it's all good. So here we're just going to give it a new name, and we'll say understand. So we're identifying data, we're understanding data. At this point, we're going to ask for something like, we want the severity, for instance, and we're going to make that required. So we're going to make sure we have severity before we go on to other stages. And then again, we can just pull stuff in, drag these things in, and we'll call it something like incident type. Again, make that required. So at this point, it's just a simple process. We go from one stage to the next, but there's conditional branching. So we can add a condition in here, and we can say, hey, if the severity is over a certain amount, we're actually going to take a different process because there are other things that we need to gather and other information that we need. So at this point, we go, right, what's the rule? So we're going to say if severity is greater than a value of 3. So we're going to have this check severity and hit apply. Now you can see we've got 2 different branches off here, a true branch and a false branch. So if this is the true branch, then we're going to add another stage in that is just investigate. And we'll apply, and then again we can add stuff into this data step, and we can say, okay, is there a risk to life here? So do we need to fill this part in? Now, if this doesn't equal true and this equals false, we don't need to do anything because it's just going to end here. It's just going to get to this point and then go, right, severity is low, so we're not going to carry on. We can just end the process here. We can finish the record off. We can mark the incident as being investigated and everything else, and it's all good. And that's it. So all I can do is I can save this and I can activate it. And if Chris gets any time to the form, and we can go take a look at that in a bit, but I'm going to move on to automation of process, because that's the thing that most people know about Power Automate is the whole idea of automating processes. So that is activating, and we'll skip onto this. So we're going to be getting an instance through from an Ewok in the field. He's found a lightsaber just lying around, and Wicket's picked it up, and he's burnt off half of his ear. So what we want to do is we want to take that data and we want to automate some processes around it. So what we're going to do is we're going to search for the common data service, because that's where our data is stored, and we're going to say when a record is created, updated, or deleted, and we're just going to have on create. And it's the HSE incidents, and the scope is organization, and it's just going to be really simple. I'm not going to rename any of these things, just it's going to take too much time. But with the information that we're getting from this designer, what we want to do is we want to pass that into an AI model. So an AI model being a bunch of text analytics, sentiment analysis, object detection, whatever it is your data is, we're going to pass that information in. What we actually have here is a predict model. So what that's going to do is that's going to predict an outcome based on data in your system already. So if you know all of your sort of sales opportunities are going to close at a certain time, that's what we're going to predict as the outcome. Or if we know that all these incidents that are going to have a higher risk to life, that's what we're going to predict on the outcome. So we're going to add that in. So go to the AI model. This is a pre-built one that Chris has built, and we're going to go to the predict model. From here, I have access to all the models. It's this HSE prediction one is the one we're going to use. Now, as I've added that, it's gone through and said, right, these are the fields that I've got. So I need village name, village planet, Ewok name, date it was created, name, instant type name, and severity. So I don't have all those things on the instant. I'm going to need to go off and get some extra data. So I'm going to go do that. So common data service. We're going to get a record. And in the get a record, we're going to look for Ewoks. And from here, we're going to use the dynamic content from that created record, because we're going to store the Ewok value, and we're going to put that in here. Now, my favorite thing, copy and paste. I love copy and paste because it just helps me so much. We're just going to do this 3 times because we need to get 3 other things. So in this one, what do we want? We want villages. And again, the query, oh, that's broken. That doesn't work. Oh, see, that one's worked. The one hasn't worked. That's fine. Let's delete that and start again. So we want villages, and then here we're going to have villages. So all we're doing is we're going off and we're finding some data. And I'll add another one in. Data service. Add this. Get record. And what's the other thing I want? Planets. What's the other record we want, Chris? There's another record somewhere, I'm trying to remember it. Incident types.
Incident types, yeah.
The other lookup. There we go. And again, we're just trying to get this from when we create the record. So incident types. So that's just trying to go off and get a bunch of values for me. So that's all good. And then I can put this stuff in here. So if I type village, I can get the village name from that get record 3. Planet. I can get that. Ewok name is just name of the Ewok, which is the first one. Date is, no, not data, date is from when we're creating this record. Instant type name is just name, but from number 3. And severity is from that first one. So I'm plugging all those pieces of direct content from all these other records into this predict model. It's going to do its thing, and then it's just going to sit there and wait for me to do something. So the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to update that first record. So I'm going to take this, I'm going to go to update record. And again, it's going to ask me for my entity name, which is the incidents. And then we're going to use the incidents again, incidents from the first one, HSE incidents. And then we're going to get all the things down. So we just need to fill in. So we have 3 fields here, which are our AI model fields. So risk to life explanation is the explanation. Risk to life predicted, we're going to enter a custom value and we're going to choose a prediction, and the probability is the likelihood, and that's it. So what we've done, so when we get an incident in, we're going to go off, we're going to query 3 lots of data. We're going to query the EWOC, which is now broken, I think. We're going to query the incident types. We're going to query the villages. Then we're going to pass that information into the predict model. Then that predict model is going to then update that same record to say, hey, all of these things, this is what we predict based on your data. So that's the thing, is that it's the data that you pass in. It's going to understand that. It's going to rationalize that. And it's going to put that data in there. As Chris said, we are democratizing AI to make it easier for the masses. So that's really simple. I didn't write any fancy code. I didn't write a bot there. I didn't write an AI model there. All I did was just pass some information between different things. And then what that's going to do is that's going to update the record. So it's a really, really simple flow to do that. Now, I can't trigger this because we need something to create the record. So to create the record, we need an app. So I'm going to hand it over to the fantastic Mr. Keith Whatling. He's going to create the app, and then we're going to see all the data in action.
Yep, that's right. We certainly are. So I'm going to share my screen. So I have got a health and safety EWOC app that I'm building. I've got some. I built this earlier Blue Peter stuff, but I'm going to go as if I was building this from scratch. So the only thing I've done is just put a theme in. So I need. I'm an Excel guy. I want to build a nice looking app because I spend all the time in my life making my spreadsheets look pretty. So that's what we're going to do. So can everyone see my screen? Yep, looks good. Great. Right. So first things first, I need a component. So I've made a set of predefined components. So I've got a nice little header there. I'm going to turn off some of the bits because I don't want them on this screen. I'm going to name my app. It's going to be called What's Wrong because I'm a comedian in the office, you know, and everyone loves me. I'm going to change the color of that text because it's a pre-built component that I've created and it's been shared by Chris, the chief architectural EWOC. I'm going to bung in a gallery. Galleries are great for showing lists of stuff. So I want to show all my health and safety incidents. And I'm going to wire that up to my data, which is already in my app. I brought that in. I just literally typed it in and said, yeah, I want that one. Bang, that's straightforward. I'm going to pick a filter, so it's going to show me that those records. Now I need to start inserting some things into my app. So I'm going to insert an image first of all. I'm going to cheat a little bit. I've got a little tiny bit of predefined code over here, which is great because it goes off and gets a map from the lat longs for those particular incidents that have been reported. I'm going to do a little bit of styling. So on my template, I'm just going to change the color to white because it looks better. Because I spend all my time making my spreadsheets look pretty, you know, because that's the kind of time wasting sort of person I am. And I need some information in there as well. So like I want to know the EWOC that did it. At the moment, it's automatically giving me the name, the reference number that we've got. And I'm going to traverse that data model. So I'm in the HSE incident at the moment, and now I'm going to look at my EWOC. EWOC, right? Now I've got the EWOC record and I just want to get the EWOC's name. There we go, right? I've got the EWOC's name. There's Chief Chirper, boom, right? Okay. So I want an image in there. Now I want to put the image of the EWOC in there. So again, this item dot EWOC, right? Dot image. There we go. That's it. I'm traversing the data model. I brought back my horrific picture of Chief Chirper. He's seen better days, right? So let's just set some sizes up there. We'll make it rounded, just like all good pictures of users are always round. In case you hadn't noticed, that's just the law. I'm going to drop an image in there because I want to. Another little bit of text in there. So I want to know when this was created. So we'll say like, you know, created on. We'll have that date. And then just like Excel, exactly like Excel code, so ampersand in the village of, and then we'll say this item again, and we'll navigate to the village entity this time, just to be different, and we'll put the village name. And apologies if I spelled something wrong, I'm severely dyslexic. And that's why all my apps are always very difficult to read. Right, so I've just changed the size of the text. That was easy, wasn't it? Right, you know, it's like Excel, and it's all the same. Going to quickly bosh another image in there. I want to just make sure that I'm collecting the image, which is the incident image. So there we go. And I've got that. Now I need some more data. So boom, look, okay, I've got a really nice app, scrolls up and down, everyone's happy. Right. I need some new data in there. So I'm going to put a little plus button in there on the top of the screen. I'm just going to style it up. I'm going to make that white. It's great. Okay, so I know I'm going to create a form, and that form is going to be called form 1. So when I click the button, there's an on select event handler. Event handlers are things that you click when stuff happens, triggers off when you click it, and things happen in the app. Right, okay, so I want a new form, and I know my form is going to be called form 1 because they always default to that in Power Apps. So new form. Form 1, it will be an error for the minute, but never mind. And I want to navigate to the details screen. Okay, right? I can put a transition in there for the details screen, but this isn't PowerPoint. Okay, so let's go and look at that details screen. And I want to input some data. And to input data in Power Apps, a couple of ways of doing it, but by far the easiest way is to use an edit form. So again, I'm going to hook that up to my data source, which is HSE incidents. I'm going to probably grab my header from the home screen because I've already set it up, save a bit of time, pop that up the top of the screen. Okay, so it's given me some default fields. I kind of need a few more. Definitely don't need name, not interested in that, and I don't need created on because that's metadata and it's going to create that for me. So I'm going to edit some fields. So severity, first thing I'm going to do, I'm just going to change that to a slider, right? That's going to be fine. Probably just need to address the fact that you can't link that to the data at the moment and change the max value to 10. So our record submits because Chief Data Architect has set all that kind of thing up, and it won't let me submit the image if I've done it wrong. Next thing I need to say the fields I want in there. So I want to record the EWOC. I want to record the incident image, the incident type, the latitude, longitude, and I also want to record the village, right? So I'm going to do a really boring bit now, and I'm really super sorry whilst this happens. I just need to unlock those fields because, you know, Power Apps prevents you from doing anything unnatural. So I'm just going to unlock those so that I can go and play and potentially break stuff, which is really fun, right? But the data source is going to prevent me from doing anything I'm not allowed to do. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm just going to move incident type to the top of the screen because that would be a better, oh dear, didn't seem to like that. There we go, incident, where's it gone? Incident type, top of the screen. You stay there. Good boy. Right, okay. So date, first thing I'm going to do, unlock date, and I'm going to just make that now, right? Oh, look, there's that Excel function that everyone knows now. And I don't really want the user interacting with that, so I'm just going to hide that bad boy. Risk to life we're going to leave, description we're going to leave, probably move severity back up there. Right, there we go. Yeah, everyone's happy. Now let's deal with EWOC. Okay, so I know the EWOC that's using this app because I've got a username, right? So I'm literally going to just do a lookup here, right? So I'm going to hide this completely from the user. So I'm going to look up the EWOC WOX entity, and I was going to say this, where the smoke signal address is equal. I've got one global variable that I put in here just to prevent any well, what they call delegation problems. So there we go. It's going to update that with the EWOC that's currently logged in using the app, right? And now I can hide that field, which I always forget to do in this demo. Okay, image, right. Oh dear, now how are we going to do an image? Right, we could use the default out of the box thing, but it's much more fun to have a camera in the app, and boom, I'll just put a camera in an app. Oh look, and there's a camera. And like, how difficult is that to do in Python? That's less than like 999,999. So when I click on my camera, I want to capture the image. So I'm just going to set another variable. To say set a variable with a set function. I'm going to call that photo. A great name for a variable. And I'm going to say self, referring to the camera itself, self photo. So when I click that, I'm going to capture that image. I've got another camera, an image on top. I'm going to display that in there, and I want to say that when I select that, I want to clear it. So if I want to take more than one image or I didn't like it, so I'm just going to set that so that it clears. So photo, there we go, and set that to blank. So that's all good. We're all cool for school. There we go. Nice bit of interactivity. And of course, I want to display my photo. So now we can look, and we've got a photo in there, and I know it looks kind of the same. And like if I move that a little bit over there, you can kind of see that that's definitely that photo. There you go. See, changed, right? No sleight of hand, no smoke and mirrors. Okay, stick this over the top of the camera that's there. Obviously, we'll make the interface look a bit nicer if we had the time. Okay. Next thing we want to do is just to hook that image up. So when that gets uploaded, I'm just going to send up the photo, right? Boom, there you go, image in the database. And now we can hide that one too, so the user doesn't see it. Latitude, longitude. Oh, I bet that's difficult to do if you're doing it in Python or C#. No, not in Power Apps. So I'm just going to go location dot, and I've got to make sure I get this one right because I always get it the wrong way around. Location dot latitude. Bang. There you go. And then we'll do that again just so I prove that I wasn't joking. Location dot longitude. Again, like super difficult to do in Python. Come and do that in CDS. Dead simple. Ewoks, villages. Okay, so let's do the same thing we did with the Ewok and look up. But what we're going to do, and I copy and pasted that from earlier on, I'm just going to bosh that in there. But I'm looking up the Ewok. I want to know what village the Ewok's in. I could make this a field that he can pick, but I'm just going to get it for automatically for the Ewok, and I can traverse that record again and get the village. See, easy, right? Walking across entities. How cool is that? Now, all I need to do is hide some more of these fields because I don't want them seeing that, because you know the union's going to get grumpy about me tracking people's locations because that's what unions do. They like to be grumpy. And the last thing I need to do is really to submit this record. So I'm going to put another button on the top of the screen, which is going to be a, not that one, oh yes, that one, a tick box, going to make that white because that makes everybody happy. And because the user interface is now all homogenized. And again, on the event handler, I'm just going to call submit form, okay? And that's going to be form one. And when that, oh, did it not, what's that form called? Form 2. Ha! Look at that. Got it wrong. Add 2 forms in there. Okay, form 2. That means the other button's wrong, by the way. So I'll have to fix that. When this form submits, I've got a couple of event handlers on there. And when the form submits and it's successful, I want to go back to the previous screen. I might also turn on my back button on my component as well. So I'll stick my back button on there and I will navigate to the screen of my choice, which will be home screen. Okie dokie. So, like, let's just fix that little thing because we need to make the form new for it to appear. So, I am an Ewok. I'm out there in the field and I want to go in there and create a new health and safety incident. I'm going to pick it's of a certain type, which was a lightsaber violation. And I think it's going to be pretty dangerous. I found a lightsaber saber next to a down on his luck Wookiee. Looked nasty. Yeah, there you go. Right, okay. And hopefully we submit that and it's successful and bloop, we're back in the home screen and there's our record and there's my house. And if you want to come and find me, that's fine, but I will fight you for your shoes. And here's the picture that we uploaded. And that is how you build an app in 7 minutes. So that's Power Apps, right? Now, why is that important? I'm a digital Ewok, right? I've spent my entire life making Excel files to transform my business. Every time I make an Excel file, I create a problem. First of all, that data is not anywhere in my business, it's on my laptop. Second of all, I can't make that Excel file mobile. And I mean that in the fact that I'm a clever Ewok and I can write macros, right? And not just macros that like I press a button to record, macros where I actually want to go out there into the field and I want to use stuff. And I can't do that with Excel. I cannot physically detach the laptop and start walking around the field with a laptop. It's just nuts, right? I need to connect to a database, right? I need to connect to a database that's secure, and I need to be able to connect to a whole bunch of other stuff. And Power Apps allows me to connect to those 300 data sources. It allows me to do it. Well, before we started today, Chris and I were jamming on a call earlier on, and we said, we know that today's hacks for Robert McAlpine. And we said, look, building sites, dude.
Yeah.
Get an image of a building site. What was the first thing we saw? Paper. Paper. Big sheets of paper. It turns out that building sites like to do paper properly. Big sheets of plans and all this kind of stuff. Now I know my old man, he was in the building trade, and like there was technology, right? There was like joist finders and all this kind of stuff. And they built the tool, they used technology to improve their tool set, but they'd never really kind of like had a full proper integration, proper digital transformation. And if you look at like kind of what's happening in the building industry at the moment with Grenfell and all the rest of it, you've got a problem that like I need to track who did everything on the site, because there needs to be culpability that if I'm not trained to do a job and I do a job, if I need to take pictures to prove that the job I did was right, because when it's burnt down, when it falls down, it's very difficult to put it back together again. In fact, I won't say who the company was or what firm my dad worked for, but there was they made, the last firm he worked for made very expensive houses, some of the most expensive houses in the UK. And someone didn't like the house that they built, and they tried to sue Dad's company. But Dad used Access back in the day, and he had photos of everything that he'd done and agreements of everything he'd done. And the people who tried to sue them lost that court case. And that house was worth 56 million quid as a new build, right? 56 million quid. Could have sent the company under, but because Dad had built a data source, it saved him. Right now, that data source was Excel. And what I'm saying to you is that if you look at this and look at what we've done today, like I used to drive a bus, right? I'm not a digital transformation person. I'm not a programmer. I'm not a techie. I've learned how to use this. I think that you guys can learn to use this too in your businesses. And I think Robert McAlpine can use it in their business. And I think it's truly transformational, because before you've done anything, you've now included the workforce that was so used to having bricks laid. And, you know, I've seen that video online of the brick laying robot, right? Think about how every bricklayer is feeling at the moment. The robot's going to come and take my job. Well, if you put an app in their hand, they're going to feel like they're part of the digital transformation future, and they're not going to feel so isolated. Has anyone got any questions?
Either we were really clear or really vague.
Really vague, man.
It's so impressive.
Really vague.
That's cool. So I just wanted
excellent. Thank you.
Yeah, just to sort of wrap up slightly. I just want to say that first of all, there's a couple of things that you need to know. Number one, that Power Apps doesn't magically give you access into all the data in your organization, right? It's a byproduct of data. So the better your data and the more well-respected your data is, the better your app, okay? And then the other thing is that, you know, Keith made a great point. The concept here is to drive growth within your organization by letting the frontline workers and the people that are closest to the problem have the ability to generate solutions that then complement and augment your data. The better your data, the better your reporting, the better your outcomes, you know, and the better your understanding. So we're taking data and turning it into intelligence, right? Now, the way to do that is by leveraging tools like Power Apps. So the app that Keith just built, you would have to have somebody filling in, let's use a snag list as an example, right? You would have to have somebody doing a building inspection, running around, filling in pieces of paper, marking stuff with X's on a plan layout. Number two, bringing that back into the office, getting some poor students in the organization to manually integrate that data into a data source, and then finally extracting reports. And there's many rooms for error over there. So what we're doing is we're removing the margin for error by going straight from app to data. So I just want to say very much to everyone, thank you very much for listening to us. I know we did this at speed. Normally each one of these sessions we can do in about 2 hours a pop. So 45 minutes has been awesome. But yeah, just to summarize, data, automation, app, that's how we did it, right? And yeah, thanks to Keith and Matt for joining us, and thank you everyone for having us. It's been a real pleasure.
In the chat, guys, we put in a couple of learning resources, the App in a Day resource and Flow in a Day resource from Microsoft, where you can go and you can turn up and do one of these courses, or you can download the course content, do it in the peace of your own home. If you want a really great curated list, just search for Power Platform learning resources or Power Apps learning resources, and there's a great page by a guy called Saurabh Pant on the Microsoft website, which has got a list of an amazing amount of learning. So just go and do that, and you'll have a great time.
Cool. Awesome. So if you guys want, feel free to stick some questions to us. Also, we're on Twitter, LinkedIn, send us smoke signals, carrier pigeons, and whatever, and we'll be there.
I've got a question, Chris. What would you recommend doing after the PL 900? Well, I mean, look, in my personal book here, like I've not done the PL 900 yet. I had a look at a lot of the qualifications, and I wasn't. I think you should just need to build apps, man, and I think you need to build apps on more data sources than you're comfortable with. So my best recommendation is pick some stuff you don't know and build apps on it, right? So like, if you don't know the common data service, build some apps on the common data service. If you don't know Azure SQL, build some apps on Azure SQL. Don't know SharePoint, build them on SharePoint. Myself, taking me out of my comfort zone, I'm currently building on team shifts. So I'm trying to manage the shifts in teams with Power Apps. I don't know it. I don't know the data source. It's going to be a bit janky. I'm going to go off and build some apps in there. Every time I do that and I pick something new out of the box, a new connector to play with, I'm going to learn a bit more. Also, jumping on all the YouTube channels, making sure you know Shane Young and all those great guys, so you can get up to speed really quickly.
I can also follow up on that. I don't want to take up too much time, but we do have the world's most qualified man on the call right now, Julian Sharp.
Oh gosh, yeah.
Yeah, Julian is an absolute machine with the exams and probably has the best knowledge. So Julian, do you want to just like say a couple of things, maybe?
Yeah, there is. If you're interested in the exams, there's a new exam called App Maker coming out next month, the PL 100. I'll put the link in. If you are interested, have a look at that. It'll be coming out in beta sometime in July. That's really about, and it's pretty much aimed at people who build apps rather than your traditional IT person. But if you have any questions, I'm here for the next hour.
Cool. Katie, just to clarify on your question, I don't know if you're still around, but you asked, does the data update in real time, like when an Ewok adds an incident, could another one see it immediately? Absolutely. See what I'm going to do there? Absolutely. So if it depends on how you build the app, but yes, if you're using the direct connectors and not using the offline functionality, you'll see it straight away.
You need to manage that though. You don't want to have like a constant refresh of the database, so you're going to run out of API calls and all that kind of stuff. There is a slight limit in terms of, just so you don't do anything messy. Like if you're inside of a list like I was, right, and I was doing messy things there. I was traversing data and going and looking at the Ewok. So every one of those records is going off and pulling off side bits and making an individual call, which is messy. So what you'd do is you'd collect that stuff internally inside of the inside of the app in one hit, and then you'd go and do it. But we just didn't have time to do that in the demo.
Thanks for that. I'm definitely going to give that platform a go.
Yes, our work here is done.
You should. I think you can build an app that's as good on. Like I've seen apps that you would never know they're a Power app apart from the loading screen and the URL. And I think that's the difference. Is that like if you're going down the pro code route, if you can't tell the difference between a Power app and a pro code app, then what's the difference? There is none. You know, visually and experience-wise and UI-wise, if you can't experience it, then why not use Power Apps? It's faster, quicker, more secure. It's pre-built for you, and it's doing what computer programmers have done for years, which is make stuff easier. And this time they've made stuff easier for building apps because everyone's doing it.
But just remember, Keith, the one thing that we do say here is that we're not trying to take pro coders' jobs away. We need people to make the Lego bricks for us. So just remember, like if you're a pro dev and you like to write code, we're not saying use Power Apps all the time. What we're saying is that we've just got some of the Lego pieces. We need your help to build up the rest.
Does that make sense? Like it's a case of saying that, you know, best tool for the right job. If you need to get to market super quick, this thing will do it. But there is a bunch of stuff it won't do. So once you're aware of that, you know where that pro code fits. And there's also some really cool stuff out there called Power Platform component frameworks, where pro coders can build incredible tools to bring inside of the platform to make low code, no code people like my life easier. And it's just about, I mean, I think the thing is that like if you've got an app deployment in your business, like technology costs a lot of money, and the IT department's always strapped for cash because let's face it, like it's very difficult for them to deliver real value. Yeah, because like every IT department, they've gone and off and looked at a new bit of technology, they've had their fingers burnt because at the end of the day, no one bloody uses it. Yeah, the best apps the best technology is Excel and Access. Why does everyone use it? Because it's built locally by the team use it because Trevor built it or Sarah built it, right? So Sarah builds an app and Trevor turns around and says, don't like that button, can we make it do this? Sarah just goes and does it, boom, 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 right? The app does what it needs to do. But Chris has built a data source that is secure enough to allow us to do this. And they've created a set of strong digital guardrails and governance that don't allow us to do anything unnatural, and we can do whatever we need to do. We make the business work, we make the apps, we know what needs to happen. Then the IT department is just a case of turning around and saying that when I started doing this, it was like, I met with a finance officer and he said, how much? And he went, ooh, show me some value. 6 months later, when I had the same discussion with him, he said, if you ever darken my door asking me for silly amounts of money like that ever again, I'll shoot you. This thing's a no-brainer, go and do it. He said, I'll literally, like, if you ever put the cost in front of your ideas again and think that's a mitigating factor, I will discipline you. He said, never do that. He said, after what you've shown me, never do that, just go and do. He said, and we'll make it work, right? Because that's the power of what this thing can do for your business. It's meaningful digital transformation.
That's what like Power Apps and Power Automate are. It's giving the control back to the users, and there are other ways to extend and use that pro code. So although I'd show Power Automate, it's built on Logic Apps. Power Automate comes from the idea that everyone should be able to do automation. Everyone should be able to become more productive, and that's what these things do. But if you want to go and do that, you know, those big technical things as well, then there's still things for that to do.
Cool.
Yeah, 100%.
All right, so I guess I've got to bail. But y'all, thanks again. I don't know, maybe the best way is just to grab us on Twitter or LinkedIn if you have questions, and then if anyone wants to ask stuff. So yeah, really, really great to chat to everyone. We'll see you soon.
That was really superb.
Thanks very much,
chaps. Yeah, I really appreciate it. Thank you.
No props.